What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was Reborn as Doctor Doom Part 9. Now, let's begin. Eric Stevens was escorted down a hallway, his arms and legs restrained, under the supervision of two guards clad in unfamiliar armor. He was unexpectedly abducted from his apartment a week ago during the night. Since that time, he has been confined. He remains unaware of the reasons behind his captivity or the identity of his captor. Based on his observations, it was clear that they were most certainly not the Wakandians. If that were the case, his uncle, the king, would likely have chosen to eliminate him, as he did with his father, rather than keep him imprisoned. At this time, Eric found himself uncertain about various aspects. It is important to note that he was in a challenging situation. The guards continued to guide him, and Eric soon arrived at a door. He was guided through. Upon entering, he immediately noticed a man seated at the table in the center of the room, enjoying a meal of ribs. Upon witnessing this, Eric blinked several times to confirm that he was not experiencing a hallucination. Despite his repeated attempts, he continued to see the man seated at the table, consuming a plate of ribs. Informing Eric that he was not experiencing hallucinations. This only rendered the entire scene before him even more peculiar. Before he could fully comprehend the situation regarding the man consuming ribs in his presence, the two guards who had escorted him to the room compelled him to the only other chair at the table and firmly insisted that he take a seat. Following this event, the two guards proceeded to fasten Eric's restraints to the table. Similarly, the man seated across from him concluded his meal by finishing the last of the ribs he had been enjoying. After this occurred, the man cleaned his hands with a napkin and subsequently placed it on the plate containing the rib bones. Which guard made contact prior to their departure from the room? They closed the door behind them. I apologize for the oversight. I was unable to take a lunch break. While I awaited the guards to escort you here, I took the opportunity to have my meal. The man stated. Eric observed him as he did. The man's face appeared unexpectedly familiar. Ultimately, his identity was revealed to him. The newly appointed king of the Eastern European nation referred to as Latveria. Naruto von Regnum. That is the individual he was seated opposite. Eric's primary inquiry was centered around the reason behind it. Now that I have satisfied my hunger, let's proceed with the matter at hand, Eric Stevens. Or would you prefer I address you by your true name, Njdaka? Naruto inquired. How do you know that name? Eric exclaimed. He found himself unable to exercise restraint. Given that he could enumerate the individuals aware of that name with his fingers, Naruto von Regnum was not among them. Here he is, utilizing it. It's straightforward. I've conducted my research on you, Eric, Naruto responded. I am fully aware of your background. For instance, the incident when you were playing basketball outside while your uncle, the reigning king of Wakanda, took your father's life, his own brother, and then retreated to his nation. This left you to navigate the world on your own. I understand your vow for retribution against your family, a sentiment I can comprehend. However, despite your extensive special forces training and the efforts you have made to prepare for your confrontation with Wakanda, I believe you will ultimately fall short. Please refrain from speaking. You lack the necessary information, Eric asserted. Striving against his constraints. Meanwhile, Naruto observed him attentively. Once Eric regained his composure, he continued to speak. No, I am quite knowledgeable on the subject. For instance, the Black Panther is not an ordinary human. Rather, they are an enhanced individual with superhuman abilities such as strength, speed, and heightened senses. Additionally, they have access to advanced vibranium technology. Therefore, someone without these advantages will find it exceedingly difficult to compete with the Black Panther. He elaborated. Please be quiet, Eric said firmly. I have an opportunity. I am a prince of Wakanda, he stated. Naruto scoffed at Eric's remarks. If that is your wager, then you are indeed more misguided than I initially perceived. What significance does your heritage as a prince of Wakanda hold? It did not prevent your uncle from taking your father's life. This seems to escape your memory, Naruto articulated. You, Eric exclaimed. Yes, that would be me, Naruto responded. I am the individual who will assist you in achieving your aspirations. However, this endeavor also serves to advance my own objectives, he stated. Naruto then employed his telepathic abilities and began to influence Killmonger's thoughts, manipulating it, and consequently, him to fulfill his own requirements. As with the rest of the world, Wakanda will yield to Naruto. "Here you are, Ms. Storm," a castle maid said. He placed the cup of coffee in front of Susan, as she had requested. "Thank you," Susan responded. "Certainly," the castle maid replied. She subsequently departing from the table where Susan was seated. Lucia, Zora, and Jessica were also seated in that location. A selection of small cakes and various snacks arranged on trays at the center of the table in front of the four women. The large garden of Castle Doom was constructed by various individuals to enhance the aesthetic appeal of his property. The reason for the four women's current situation stems from Naruto's departure after he expressed his desire for all four to become his queens. Shortly thereafter, the other three brought Susan to this location. This would allow them to engage in conversation with her in a more relaxed environment. Despite her efforts, Susan found herself utterly speechless, considering that she has recently discovered the father of her children has a harem and is inviting her to join it. Susan has encountered anime of this nature previously, courtesy of Johnny, yet she never anticipated that her life would eventually begin to mirror one. The prospect was quite overwhelming. "Susan, are you feeling all right?" However, that ceased when Lucia made a call regarding her situation. Yes. No, you know what? I am far from fine," Susan stated. "That is entirely reasonable, considering all that Naruto has just disclosed to you," Zora stated. She took a sip from her cup, filled with tea. "I would like to address that matter. Are you all genuinely comfortable with the arrangement he proposes for us?" Susan inquired. "Yes," Zora responded with ease. "Certainly," Lucia replied. "Certainly," Jessica responded. Impressive Susan. This indicated that she was the outlier within their group. "Are you all truly serious?" Susan inquired. "Naruto intends for us to be included in a harem arrangement, sharing his affections." "Yes, and?" Zora inquired. "It's not as if we haven't been doing that already," Lucia stated. "While becoming his official queens will alter certain aspects of our relationship with him and our dynamic among ourselves, I do not anticipate any significant issues," she stated. Deepening Susan's astonishment. "Does anyone among you truly perceive a problem with this?" Susan inquired again. "Susan, we truly do not," Jessica stated. "As you may have noted from Naruto's remarks in the throne room earlier, he is not the kind of man who would casually take any woman into his bed." "Precisely," Lucia remarked. "Moreover, in spite of your objections, you have not explicitly dismissed the concept," she stated. A subtle smile emerged on her face. This prompted Susan to begin to lightly blush. This situation has the potential to create numerous challenges. "Could you provide some examples?" Jessica inquired. "Consider the perspectives of your fellow citizens, not to mention the opinions of the global community," Susan remarked. "Firstly, our team would be agreeable to it," Lucia stated. "Particularly given that polygamy is not prohibited here as it is in many other parts of the world. Furthermore, the opinions of others are irrelevant. This matter is ours to manage, and it does not concern anyone else," she clarified. Zora added, "Lucia is correct, Susan. Furthermore, it appears that the justifications you are presenting are primarily for your own benefit rather than for the collective." "That is not accurate," Susan refuted. "Indeed, it is," Zora responded. "Susan, there is no need for concern. Naruto genuinely cares for you. If he didn't, he wouldn't have pursued you initially. You are set to be the mother of his first children, and he will not abandon you. Therefore, I urge you not to abandon him. Indeed, wouldn't you like to fully experience Naruto's capabilities in a more intimate setting?" Jessica inquired. "What are you referring to?" "I have already encountered that, as you are aware," Susan stated, indicating her abdomen. "Oh, Susan, you are mistaken in your understanding," Lucia stated. "If Naruto had exerted his full strength, the impact on your body would have been significant." "Are you serious?" Susan inquired. However, as Lucia, Zora, and Jessica remained silent, Susan came to the realization that they were not, which only caused her face to become even redder. "I can see you are contemplating it," Zora remarked. "Perhaps," Susan acknowledged. "However, I am a foreigner," she added. Will I be accepted by others? The other three ladies smiled upon hearing this question. They exchanged a brief glance before returning their attention to Susan. As soon as they acted, Susan had no opportunity to respond before being swiftly taken to a hovercar. Subsequently, Susan received an unplanned tour of Latveria, where she gained a deeper understanding of the country as well as the individuals who inhabit it. In light of all that Naruto has accomplished for them, this, along with all other factors, swiftly led Susan to a conclusion about her role as one of Naruto's queens. Naruto's perspective withdrawing from Killmonger's thoughts, I reclined in my chair and positioned my hands behind my head. Bringing joy to my day, after 2 hours of work, he is now completely under my control. If I instruct him to jump, he will inquire about the height, and if I were to suggest he take his own life, he would ask for the method. Rewiring his mindset represents a significant achievement in my professional endeavors. I took a moment to acknowledge my achievements and reflect on the success I had experienced. After reaching my limit, I straightened in my chair, rose from my seat, and proceeded to knock on the door of the room. Upon my action, the door opened promptly, and the 2 Spartan guards who had accompanied dear Eric into the room entered as well. Please release him from his restraints, I instructed the 2 guards. Subsequently, they both acknowledged me with a salute and proceeded to fulfill my request. Releasing Eric from all his constraints, following their actions, Killmonger positioned himself in front of me, then knelt and lowered his head. I acknowledged this with a smile and a nod. Very well. Now, please rise, I instructed. When I did, Eric stood back up to his feet. Subsequently, we all exited the room in unison. I subsequently brought Eric to Zemo, where I administered my version of the SS serum and then departed, allowing Zemo to commence Eric's training. This would significantly facilitate his eventual transition to taking over Wakanda when he is deemed ready for that responsibility. Upon completing this task, I made my way back to Castle Doom. I subsequently inquired with the castle staff regarding Susan's whereabouts. I wished to discuss the possibility of her assuming the role of my queen again. It appears that Lucia and her colleagues had arranged for Susan to experience an extensive tour of Latveria, away from the castle. Upon acquiring this information, I made the decision to proceed to my lab facility to utilize the time until their return. Additionally, I had another issue to address there. Upon entering the portal gate to my laboratory facility, I promptly proceeded to the holding cell area. I then proceeded directly to the Deathbird cell, observing her deeply engaged in an episode of South Park. A flat-screen television is installed in her cell. According to the information provided by Brainiac, she has developed a significant enthusiasm for it, although she never acknowledges it. When one looks past her arrogance, intense anger, and somewhat violent tendencies, it becomes clear that Deathbird can be characterized as a tsundere. As I paused in front of her cell, Deathbird offered a brief glance before returning her attention to South Park. She only acknowledged my presence again once the episode she was watching concluded. A quintessential display of strategic maneuvering, naturally. However, given my position of authority in this situation, I will choose to overlook it. You, Deathbird. Yes, that would be me, I responded. How have you been since we last met? Indeed, Deathbird responded. These accommodations are satisfactory for now, my dear, she informed me, causing me to laugh audibly. It is quite surprising that you continue to believe you hold the upper hand in this dynamic, when the reality is quite the opposite. I must commend your audacity, however, I appreciate a spirited partner. I stated. I am not your woman, Deathbird exclaimed. If you were to adopt a less confrontational approach, you might find yourself in a different situation. You could leave this confinement and enjoy a greater degree of freedom. I would consider you for a prominent role in my circle. Additionally, I would assist you in assuming leadership of the Sheer Empire. Furthermore, we could revisit the intimacy we shared that evening, which, despite your intentions, did not unfold as you had planned. I stated, examining Deathbird thoroughly with my gaze. You, cease your delusions immediately, Deathbird commanded. Although her words lacked significant impact, I observed her stealing glances at my lower body after I referenced our intimate evening together. Regardless of how discreet she believed her actions to be, sharing some insights regarding the thoughts circulating in her mind. Thank you for the discussion. I look forward to our next meeting, I said. I proceeded to walk away from Deathbird's cell, disregarding her calls as I departed. I subsequently arrived at one of the many laboratories within the facility. I engaged in some tasks to utilize my time effectively. It was only after Brainiac notified me that Susan and the other girls had returned. Upon receiving the notification, I promptly ceased my current activities and began proceeding to their location. I am looking forward to receiving a response from Susan regarding my previous inquiry. As I stepped out onto one of the many balconies of Castle Doom, my gaze connected with Susan's. The other girls informed me of her location when I met with them a few moments ago. "Susan," I stated. "Naruto," she responded. "This country of yours is truly wonderful," she stated. "I appreciate that," I responded. "However, my achievements are not solely my own. Without the support of trusted colleagues such as Lucia and Boris, and the dedication of the people of Latveria, this nation would not be what it is today. Therefore, I extend my sincere gratitude to each of them." I acknowledge that, Susan responded, bringing joy to her expression. "The individuals in your community exhibit remarkable qualities of love, acceptance, and kindness, extending their warmth even to someone from outside this nation like myself, as well as to all the other outsiders you have welcomed here. It is for this reason that I would consider it a profound honor to lead them," she articulated. "Susan, does that indicate your acceptance of my proposal?" I inquired. "Indeed, Naruto. It certainly does. I will take on the role of one of your queens," Susan stated. She has confirmed her participation. Upon hearing this, I experienced a profound sense of joy. "Thank you, Susan. I truly appreciate it. I assure you, this decision will prove to be worthwhile," I said. "I don't believe I will either," Susan responded. Afterward, she approached me and gently pressed her lips against mine in a kiss. After she did, the two of them stood there, enjoying each other's warmth and embrace for an indeterminate amount of time. Ultimately, we did separate. Subsequently, we commenced sharing the positive news with numerous individuals, incorporating Ben, Alicia, and Johnny. The final individual began to express his emotions, showing deference and requesting that I impart my knowledge to him upon discovering that I had a genuine harem. I have consented to that, given our close relationship. Proceeding forward. After Susan consented to become one of my queens, progress began to unfold more rapidly than I had anticipated in various aspects. Before I realized it, a year and a half had elapsed. 2010, on the balcony of Castle Doom, where Susan had consented to become one of his queens, Naruto stood with his hands clasped behind his back, observing the ascent of the morning sun, appreciating its grandeur. Additionally, reflecting on the numerous changes that have occurred globally over the past year and a half. Some are attributable to him and his associates, while others are not. Initially, Tony has publicly stated and disclosed to the world, with Maya's permission, that Riri is his daughter. This brought immense joy to the young genius. Tony is included as well. The bond between the father and daughter has only strengthened since their initial meeting. Even after Tony and Pepper commenced their romantic relationship. This occurred just prior to the conclusion of 2008. The couple continues to thrive, with their relationship becoming increasingly robust. The Future Foundation has now become fully operational. The foundation's reputation has consistently improved since it opened its doors. Although there were individuals who disapproved, it clearly endorsed Evo's initiatives. The third and undoubtedly the most significant change that has occurred on Earth in the past year and a half. Naruto convened with Xavier, the remaining F4, Tony, and his associates to take a significant step forward by disclosing the existence of Evos to the global audience. His theories regarding them, his personal position on their existence, and so forth. Naruto presented all of this, and more, for consideration. This undoubtedly caused widespread shock and frenzy across the globe. However, Naruto remained completely indifferent, as individuals were bound to discover information regarding Evos in the future. It was truly unavoidable. He simply expedited the process. Additionally, initiate actions to safeguard the Evos globally. There are concerns not only regarding visible threats, such as the various hate groups that have emerged following what many refer to as the Evo reveal, but also regarding the more subtle, invisible threats. Similar to the infringement of an Evo's rights, they possess exceptional abilities. Naruto and his team identified numerous instances related to individuals previously recognized as mutants. It was highly unappealing to them. They addressed these matters in the most appropriate and rational manner possible. They entered a state of complete elimination. Naruto has been utilizing the extensive resources available to him to systematically identify and eliminate, with decisive action, any and all entities that pose a significant threat to the global Evo population. These may include individuals, organizations, or even creations and objects. Naruto is meticulously observing everything around him. You can rely on it. Proceeding forward. Over the past 18 months, the perspective on Evos has significantly improved. Particularly following Naruto's disclosure to the world regarding his identity as an Evo. Although he certainly did not foolishly reveal all of his capabilities. No, he only disclosed his electrical generation capabilities to the public. This subsequently caused numerous world leaders and those in positions of authority to approach him with caution. Nonetheless, Naruto was taken aback to discover several individuals who were unafraid to offer him their genuine and sincere support. The experience was varied, to be candid. However, one Naruto could effectively collaborate with. Nonetheless, the Octavius couple has successfully completed the development of their fusion reactor. In contrast to the Spider-Man 2 film, this was entirely secure and fully operational. A point that Naruto and his companions ensured. Following the confirmation of the reactor's safety, Naruto commissioned several units to be strategically placed throughout Latveria. The reactors currently provide power on a permanent basis, transforming Latveria into a fully independent nation reliant on fossil fuels. A situation that Naruto and his team are actively working to facilitate for numerous other countries globally. Discussions have commenced with potential suppliers for the provision of fusion reactors to generate power. Regardless of the actions taken by oil, coal, and other energy companies. With the exception of Stark Industries, of course, who has begun to engage in active competition with Latveria in the clean energy sector. However, a bit of competition can be beneficial. Additionally, Naruto embraces it. Indeed. The fifth point is that Project Demeter has successfully been realized. Maya has already developed several strains of super crops using Extremis. These are currently being cultivated in Latveria. Naruto and his team are currently engaged in the sale of these exceptional crops to multiple countries worldwide. Similar to the fusion reactors, this has understandably led to increased frustration among individuals. Over the past year and a half, Latveria and all associated entities and individuals have experienced a significant rise in attempts at infiltration and subversion. Keyword was attempted, given that all efforts at infiltration and subversion have been thoroughly dismantled. This will persist moving forward, since Naruto will not permit anyone to obstruct his path. Sixth, Naruto has initiated another company, which is recognized as Excelsior Entertainment. The name is derived from the beloved catchphrase of Marvel's iconic figure, Stan Lee. The organization is performing effectively. We have successfully developed two highly acclaimed games. The names are Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. The relationship between Naruto and Cheel is currently thriving. As Naruto's thoughts continued to flow, he abruptly halted upon hearing a familiar voice calling out to him. "Good morning, father." Upon hearing this voice, Naruto smiled. He subsequently turned to confront the source of the voice. "Good morning, Kristoff," Naruto stated. "Who is Kristoff?" His adoptive son was developing into a distinguished and attractive young man. However, he was not by himself. On either side of Kristoff, floating in the air, were none other than Naruto and his two children. The initial individual was a boy with blonde hair, identified as Franklin von Regnum. The second was his older twin sister, Valeria von Regnum. The children of Naruto and Susan have emerged with identical names and appearances, mirroring their representations in the comics. The sole distinction lay in their capabilities. Both twins not only possessed super intellect, but they also shared the same superhuman abilities. Their ability to replicate the powers of any superhuman they encountered was a notable fact. Similar to Rogue, however, in contrast to her, they would merely replicate abilities. Additionally, they could maintain the abilities they acquired through touch indefinitely and even merge them. In summary, Franklin and Valeria can be viewed as modified interpretations of All for One from My Hero Academia. Although not as perilous as reality warping, the twins remained exceptionally lethal. However, Naruto would expect nothing less from those who share his bloodline. While I appreciate the time spent with my children, I must inquire about your presence here. Shouldn't preparations for breakfast be underway? We were planning to arrive separately, but the twins expressed a desire to come find you and join you for today's event, Kristoff explained. I understand, Naruto responded. Since that is what you both desire, let us proceed, he stated. Upon hearing this, both Franklin and Valeria exchanged bright smiles with their father. Following their departure from the balcony, the group of four proceeded directly to breakfast. The day typically commenced in this manner for the royal family of Naruto. Remy LeBeau swiftly opened his eyes and surveyed his surroundings. His last recollection was of enjoying a leisurely stroll down the street, before everything abruptly went dark. Now here he is. Inside a windowless chamber, confined to a chair and wearing a collar around his neck. In front of him are two robots and a black man, both of whom are seated in chairs. Remy recognized the man and robots immediately upon seeing them. They were part of the squad that had been systematically destroying his employer, Mr. Sinister's strongholds all across the world for nearly 2 years. In addition, he is disassembling his entire company. Now it appears that they have caught up with him. Looks like this is the end of the road for me, Remy thought. Good, you're finally awake, the black man said. Now then, let's get down to business. Since I have vastly more important things to do today than deal with a thief like you, he ordered. Now, why you tryin' to harm Gambit feelin' S? Remy inquired. He gave a smirk. My name is Zod. Only for Zod to utterly dismiss his comment. And quite frankly, if my liege didn't have an interest in you, you would be dead right now. But he does, so you are not. Be thankful for that. Zod offered an explanation. So, your boss is interested in me? Why? Remy inquired. For some reason he thinks you can be more than a simple scoundrel and thief. Zod went on. Which is why from now on you will be working for us. Oh. And just who are you all? Remy inquired. When he did, Zod smirked. The ones who will make your former employer, Mr. Sinister, fall into the deepest pits of despair. He went on. Remy swallowed a lump in his throat when he heard this. For he knew Zod wasn't lying. Understood, Remy responded. Zod responded, excellent. Well then, good day. A few people will be in here in a few minutes to take care of you. Good luck. He ended the sentence. Zod then jumped up from his chair and approached the room's door. But just before he opened it, he turned back to gaze at Remy one last time. Oh, and more thing, Remy. If you even take a single step towards betraying us, I'll make you beg for the sweet release of that, but make sure it never comes to you. Then Zod spoke. After then, his eyes were flashing crimson. But it barely lasted a second before the brightness faded and Zod departed the room. Remy was left wondering what he'd gotten himself into. Harlem, New York City, New York, USA. Jessica got out of the SUV when it came to a stop. One of Naruto's Spartan bodyguards followed her out. Meanwhile, the other parked the SUV and joined them. After that, the three of them entered the establishment through the doors that stood in front of them. A bar. Following this, the group of three chose a table and took a seat. Waiting for the person they came to the bar to chat with today to appear. Which they did a minute after Jessica and her security had taken their seats. The owner of the pub, whom Jessica had come to talk with, emerged from the back room, carrying a case of foreign beer on his right shoulder. A 6 feet 6 inches African American with a muscular build, his original name was Carl Lucas. However, owing to circumstances, he had to change his name, and he now goes by another. Luke Cage. When Luke arrives at the bar's front counter, he places the case of foreign beer on the stop. He then switched his attention to the Jessica group. Morning. Can I help you? Luke questioned them. Even though the bar was open, he didn't think Jessica and her entourage were there for a drink. Then, he might be wrong. Jessica answered, yes, I believe you can. She got up from her seat and came over to the front desk. You see, I'm looking for a certain man, and I've heard he virtually lives in this bar. His name is Carl Lucas. Know where I can find him? Luke said, "No, sorry, I don't." Trying to maintain a neutral expression on his face. Meanwhile, his fingers began drilling holes in the counter. "Now Mr. Cage, we both know that's a lie," Jessica countered. "Seeing as you can Carl Lucas are one in the same," she remarked. Hearing Jessica say this, Luke tightened up in preparation for a fight. Despite this, neither Spartan rose from their seat. Jessica did not even flinch. "There's no need to get so wound up, Mr. Cage. My colleagues and I are not here today to fight you or bring you back to prison for the crimes you were framed for. We just came to talk," Jessica explained. "Talk?" Luke questioned. "Also, did you just say I was framed?" "Of course. Because it is the truth," Jessica said. "How do you know this?" Luke inquired. "For that matter, why do you suppose I was framed?" "Because the proof is all around, if you know where to look. Which is what my employer has done. This is one of the many reasons Dad sent me here to speak with you," Jessica said. "Oh, yeah, and who is your employer?" Luke inquired. Jessica said, "Naruto von Regnum. Do you mean the foreign monarch who can fire electricity from his hands?" Luke inquired. "The same," Jessica said. "Like you, Mr. Cage, my king is an Evo," she explained. Jessica then took the case of foreign beer on the counter and effortlessly hoisted it above her head with one hand. Luke's eyes widened with disbelief. Jessica returned the foreign beer case to the clerk. "And, as you can see by the display, I am an EVO as well. But, unlike me and Naruto, who gained their talents by accident, you were forced to become an EVO. While your civil liberties are infringed in prison, you had no choice but to engage in an unethical and unlawful experiment that may have killed you. Had everything not lined up perfectly for you," Jessica said. "So you know everything about me," Luke mused. Jessica nodded her head in agreement. "Okay, now what? Because, despite all of your talking, lady, you have yet to tell me why you are in my bar right now," Luke said. "Yes, Mr. Cage, I was just getting to that," Jessica responded. "Simply put, my king sent me here today to offer you support." "Support, you say?" Luke questioned. "Yes, support," Jessica responded. "He will not only allocate resources to help you clear your name of the false charges brought against you, but he will also assist you in making your Luke Cage identity permanent." Jessica explained that she would also offer you the means to find out who put you in your current circumstance in the first place and deal with them how you see fit. "Okay. So, what's the catch?" Luke inquired. "My king wants you to become something bigger than yourself. He wants you to use your powers in public. Put yourself out there and fight for those who can't fight for themselves," Jessica stated. "So, he wants me to be a hero?" Luke questioned. "Exactly," Jessica responded. "You see, my king is committed to making the world a better place for EVOs in general, as well as facilitating their easy coexistence with the rest of the population. To accomplish this, he wishes to demonstrate to the world how EVOs may serve as a source of hope and a light in the darkness. Wouldn't you enjoy that, Mr. Cage? To show little boys and girls who look like you that anything is possible if you set your mind to it and put in the effort. Especially those with powers." Luke was speechless while listening to Jessica's words. His mind was whirling and processing the information he was hearing. Jessica reached into her pocket, took out a business card, and placed it on the counter. "I can see that I won't get a response to my proposal today. And that is completely okay, Mr. Cage. If I were in your position, I would not readily accept a bargain like this. So take your time, think about it, and then if you decide to take it, call the number on this card," she stated. "Well, then, enjoy the rest of your day," Jessica added. She then turned to go, and her bodyguards stood up from their seats to accompany her. Before Jessica left the bar, she placed $500 on the counter. "You have a good bar here, Mr. Cage, and a good bartender. So here's your tip," Jessica said. She and her bodyguards then actually left Luke's bar. This leaves the man with a lot to think about. Matthew Murdoch froze in his tracks as he entered his flat, sensing that someone else was waiting for him inside. Someone he did not know. Using his improved abilities, he discovered that the mystery individual was sitting on his living room couch. She also happened to be female. "Well, hello, Mr. Murdoch. Please come and have a seat. This is your home, after all, and I came here to have a serious chat with you," said the woman. Funny, Matt said dryly. If this is your definition of what it means to try to have a proper conversation with someone, you and I see the world very differently. Now, leave, or I'll contact the police. Maybe better yet, there's so much noise that one of my neighbors phones the cops. You could do it. But if you did, I'd be obligated to report your nocturnal actions to the authorities, the woman explained. Ma'am, I'm sure I don't know the woman said, the devil of Hell's Kitchen. Interrupting Matt. I wonder how people would react if they found out someone who has sworn to uphold the laws goes out every night and breaks them? Now wouldn't that be an interesting story of the Good Morning America morning news? Matt became irritated at hearing this, but he soon reined it in. For the most part, he was aware of his contacts with the woman who sat in front of him. Matt said, "All right, you win." He then walked to sit on one of his living room chairs. "Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. My name is Jessica Drew, just so you know," she said. "So as I was saying earlier, I just want to have a conversation with you." "About what?" Matt inquired. "About crime reduction in the city of New York," Jessica responded. "You see, I work for the king of Latveria, Naruto von Regnum, who has many goals, one of them being making the world a better place. And he does this in various ways, one of which is aiding Evos he deems worthy of his support, along with their causes, both categories which you fall into, Mr. Murdoch," she went on. Matt said, "I see, and how would Naruto von Regnum aid me?" He was wondering. First off, he would provide you with a proper suit, instead of those pajamas you wear when you go out and deal with criminals. Secondly, he would work to make it so you could openly work with the police. Third, he would give the law firm you and your best friend Mr. Nelson started some much-needed cash flow, by providing you with reputable clients that can actually pay you, many of whom would be Evos. He would also do so much more," Jessica went on. Matt knew she wasn't lying because of his improved senses. But it didn't mean he trusted her, not this offer she was making to her king, Naruto. "Of course, I'm not expecting any sort of answer tonight. Take some time, think about it, discuss it with those you can. And then when you've made a decision, call the number on this card," Jessica went on. She then rapidly removed a business card from her pocket and flung it squarely into Matt's face. The man was easily caught. "Right. Well, you've given me a lot to think about," Matt grumbled. "I know I have. So, good night, Mr. Murdoch," Jessica responded. She then left his flat. Leaving Matt alone, he quickly became buried in his thoughts, contemplating Jessica's proposition. That was interrupted for a brief moment as the door to his flat reopened. But this time, Matt recognized the person who entered. His long-term girlfriend, Electra Nachios. Electra closed the door behind her and saw Matt sitting in the chair, and she knew he wasn't doing well. "My love, what is wrong?" she inquired. "I had a visitor tonight, who just gave me an offer that sounds too good to be true," Matt responded. "Though if it is true, and I take it, everything could change," he muttered. Electra responded, "Tell me." She then walked to sit on the couch, while Matt proceeded to recount his encounter with the enigmatic Jessica Drew. Disgust, horror, and rage. These were the most intense emotions Jessica Jones was experiencing at the time. But she couldn't convey them. Instead, all she could do was smile. All due to the man standing in front of her. Zebediah Kilgrave had purple skin. Since he opened his mouth and spoke to Jessica a few minutes ago, she has been unable to do anything but obey his directions. This involved breaking into a car and beating up many bystanders. Using all of her abilities. Kilgrave has seen her use it before. This is why he became interested in her, the beginning of her living nightmare. Kilgrave said, "Well, I must say, you are quite a delight, Jessica Jones." Looking her body up and down. "If you're this much fun on your feet, I wonder how much fun you would be on your knees in front of me?" According to Kilgrave, Jessica wanted to puke up after hearing those words. "What day you and I test my eyed, pop." Before Kilgrave could continue his sentence, a massive hole opened in his head, spilling chunks of his blood and brain matter across Jessica's face and clothes. But she didn't care because the scoundrel in front of her had died. Jessica could feel her control returning even before Kilgrave hit the ground. When she finished, she let out an audible sigh of relief. She even began to cry a little. Her living nightmare, no matter how short it had been, had ended. Even as relief flowed over her, Jessica couldn't help but wonder who had slain Kilgrave. The superhuman female responded to her inquiry a moment later, as several black SUVs rolled up and surrounded her and Kilgrave's body. After that, many individuals began to exit them. Many people moved to attend to Kilgrave's body. Some even attended to her, like wiping the blood and brain stuff from her face. Once everything was done, a woman approached and softly grasped Jessica's hands in her own. Giving her a soothing gaze. "It's okay. You're safe now, Jessica. That filth in human skin can never hurt you or anyone else ever again," she said to the woman. Okay, Jessica said. Who are you people?" She found herself wondering. The woman said, "We're here to help. But if you're asking who I am, then my name is Jessica Drew." "So again, nice to meet you, Jessica," she said. She gave a sneer. As a result, Jessica Jones unintentionally did the exact same thing, which began to erase the negative emotions she was experiencing and replace them with positive ones. Most of all, a sense of hope. With anger and terror sweeping over him, Robert, Bobby, Drake wished he could be anywhere but where he was, which was in the back of a large moving truck, with his arms restrained by shackles embedded in the vehicle's walls and a collar around his neck, one that prevented him from employing his newly discovered abilities. Bobby experienced an EVO. He found his skills just before school finished and he left on summer vacation. This made Bobby delighted and afraid at the same time, as he is now. He was thrilled because he believed that with his abilities, he could become a hero, like Captain America or something, but he was also terrified. Namely, his family would despise him, but after watching the news and learning about Naruto, a monarch in Latveria, and a group called the Future Foundation that protected people like him, as well as the Fantastic Four, Bobby found confidence and decided to take a chance and inform his family about his abilities. He realized he had been worried for nothing. They still loved him the same, filling him with enormous joy. Thus, life in the Drake household resumed as usual. Bobby, his dad, and younger brother Ronnie embarked on their usual summer family road vacation. Something Bobby has always enjoyed doing, so things were going great for the young Evo. Then, in an instant, everything fell apart. While his family was stopping at a gas station to refuel their RV and stretch their legs, Bobby was suddenly approached by a group of masked individuals, who placed the collar he was wearing around his neck and then forced him into a van. They then carried him to the truck where he is currently imprisoned, together with many other folks. All of them are chained up and collared, just like him. Listening to his other captives' cries and shots, Bobby couldn't help but wonder if he was going to die. He'd watched a few movies that resembled his scenario, and he knew they never ended well, unless a hero appears and rescues the hostages, but Bobby couldn't think that was even possible. Then, after allowing that particular notion to travel through his head, he was quickly exposed how incorrect that line of thinking was. The truck abruptly came to a standstill. When this occurred, Bobby and his fellow detainees immediately began communicating. "What's going on? Are they about to kill us? We're dead. We're so dead." These and other comments echoed out through the air, as each prisoner speculated on why the truck had suddenly stopped traveling. Some are more morbid than others, but they are all hypotheses. But before any of the inmates could blink, the vehicle burst apart around them, putting an end to all of their guesswork, introducing them to the outer world. Corpses and battlefield signs were on show all around them. Looking at them, the former convicts had a lot of questions. But before anyone could speak up, a new voice grabbed everyone's attention. "It is all right. You all are safe now. I promise you this." Magneto's voice could only be his, who decided to work with Naruto some time ago, along with the majority of his subordinates, to improve the world for others like them. But in Naruto's style, Magneto had to admit it worked. Moving on. After Magneto spoke, all of the erstwhile inmates turned their attention in his way. When they did, they noticed Magneto hovering a few feet in the air, wearing the new suit Naruto had created for him after agreeing to work with him, which was his white and black outfit from the comics. In addition to Magneto, other former members of his acolytes were there in front of the captives. along with numerous Spartans wearing full armor. However, there is no discernible marking. They were now operating like Black Ops forces. They and Magneto's crew had just hit a truck and the convoy defending it, which belonged to a group known as the Purifiers, who largely operated from the United States, where the law genuinely protects them. But not from Naruto or his people, who rained fire and brimstone on their asses every chance they got. Like right now. Anyway, Bobby's eyes lit up as he focused on Magneto and those who supported him. Seeing that he was mistaken earlier, a hero did arrive to save them. So maybe he can genuinely become one eventually. Bobby had no idea how right he was. Peter Parker felt happy as he walked inside his high school, known as Midtown High. He felt fantastic. This was very different from how he had been feeling during the weekend. He found himself sicker than a dog. His symptoms suddenly appeared when he was on a class field trip to Oscorp Industries, which Peter had been looking forward to. So having to return home halfway through the trip and then being forced to stay in bed all weekend was very sad. Peter tried not to focus on the negative. Instead, he sought to focus on the positive. For example, he suddenly didn't need to see his classes and had abs. Seriously, what is going on with me? Peter asked himself. Peter. Only to be jolted out of his reverie when he heard his companions scream out to him simultaneously. Peter smiled as he gazed in their direction. His friends quickly closed the distance between them. Peter's acquaintances include Harold, Harry, Osborn, Gwendolyn, Gwen, Stacy. Finally, Ned Leeds. Peter said to them, "Guys." Harry responded, "Pete. So, how are you feeling?" He inquired. "Yeah, you look like you wanted to cough up all your insides the last time we saw you." Ned offered an explanation. Gwen said, "Way to be supportive there, Ned." Ned responded, "What, it's true." "Ned's right, Gwen," Peter added. "Also thanks for worrying about me. But I'm fine, it was just a stomach bug." Though now I'm back and better than ever. His buddies asked him about it, which alleviated their concerns. When Peter saw this, he nodded. He then noticed a ringing inside his head, one that was almost instructing him to duck. So, before Peter knew it, he had done just that. Then, soon after he did it, a football flew over him. Whoa, did Parker just dodge? Lucky break. Standing back up, Peter turned to see Flash, Eugene, Thompson and his entourage at the other end of the hallway. All of them had astonished looks on their faces. Gwen whispered, "Assholes." Looking ready to tear someone's head off, Peter said, "Gwen, it's fine. Just ignore them." "But Peter," Peter said, "Gwen, it's fine. I didn't get hurt." "Yeah, this time," Harry replied. "Seems like your luck might be changing, Pete." He offered an opinion. Peter murmured, "Yeah, maybe," making it a point to find out what was going on with him after school today. Peter felt certain he was no longer normal. Now he pondered what he was. Sitting on a chair, built out entirely of plants, with a cup of tea in her hands, Ivy casually gazes at the people in front of her. All of them were practicing magic, with her as their primary teacher. She has completed her own studies in the mystics arts to the degree required to be officially called a master by the Order of Kamar Taj, where she had trained her mystical skills. When she was finished, she returned to Latveria and began forming a magical corps for the military, as Naruto had told her. Of course, she wasn't forgetting to practice and develop her own skills in the mystic arts. Ivy realized that no matter how skilled she became, she could always improve. As those under her supervision continued to practice their powers, Ivy took a drink of her tea. After that, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. Kamar Taj's mystic master leader and personal educator to her ruler, the Ancient One. Naruto's real name appears to be Yao, though he never explained how he discovered this. She was headed towards one of Naruto's many training grounds, which were designed to allow people to safely practice their magical talents. Being followed by multiple people, Naruto had introduced her to all of them, and after meeting them, she decided to take them on as personal students. The individuals in question are as follows: Kristoff, Wanda Maximoff, Ileana Rasputin, and 2 new recruits to the Ancient One's class, Aurora Munro, and a young Evo named Megan Gwyn. When Ivy saw this group, she promptly addressed her own students. Okay, everyone, stop, she said. Hearing Ivy say this was all her pupil did. They then stared at her. Good. Now, that's enough practice for now. Let's take a break. While also observing the Ancient One in her class. For by watching them I have no doubt your own magical abilities will improve, Ivy said. Her students, in unison, seemed to agree with her. With that, they all looked to the Ancient One and her students. The group had finally reached the training ground they were aiming for. The Ancient One couldn't suppress a smirk as she noticed the eyes now fixed on her and her students. Looks like we've drawn a crowd. Then we just have to make it a good one, Kristoff said. Indeed, let's demonstrate our strength and abilities, Ileana declared, her voice ringing out. Even though I was the youngest student. Well, I'll give it a shot, Megan replied. The Ancient One, upon hearing this, simply shook her head. Oh dear, my young Megan. With magic, you either do it or you don't, she said. Master, did you just quote Yoda? Megan's voice was a mix of disbelief and surprise. Indeed, the Ancient One said, without hesitation. That's a line I enjoy from the movie. Wait, you've actually seen Star Wars? Wanda inquired. I have, the Ancient One responded. Like I've mentioned, just because the Order has its roots in temples doesn't mean we're isolated. Not even me, she clarified. Alright, let's get started with today's lesson. Yes, Master. The response echoed from her students, a chorus of agreement. The Ancient One smiled. It was a pleasure, indeed, to have those devoted students back, each brimming with promise in the mystical arts, and all under her guidance once more. It had been so long since she'd felt this way. Yao felt, at the very least, a few of centuries younger. She understood, of course, that Naruto's desire for her to mentor the youngsters before her sprang from a multitude of factors. Perhaps she was considering them as potential successors, candidates to take up the Sorcerer Supreme title when she eventually decided to step down. Rather than succumbing to her initial idea, she could see right through Naruto's schemes, honestly. Still, she didn't particularly object to their stance on this specific issue. The Ancient One commenced the day's instruction when her students had responded. Each of them demonstrated a natural aptitude for the mystic arts. Moreover, their commitment to self-improvement in this area is noteworthy. The Ivy League students were captivated. Ivy's lips curled into a smirk as she took it all in. That meant the Ancient One and her students, used to spur her own, had played their part perfectly. This meant she could elevate her students' training. It sparked a bright, passionate smile. A collective chill swept through the Ivy League students, a simultaneous shudder that rippled across the campus. Yet, they all opted to look the other way. They clung to the hope that their fears were nothing more than a product of their own minds. Though they would all soon discover otherwise. Wakanda, Bernanzana, the Golden City. Accompanied by members of the Dora Milaje, King T'Chaka traversed the royal palace's corridors. His family walked beside him. They'd heard there was a ruckus in the throne room. It was a matter that demanded the full focus of the entire royal family. The Dora Milaje, guardians of Wakanda, swung open the doors to the throne room, granting the royal family passage. Once they finished, they surveyed the room. The room was packed with the entire tribal council, plus a whole lot more Dora Milaje. Each of them had their guns trained on a guy occupying the throne, a seat usually designated for the monarch. Klaua's lifeless form lay at his feet. What on earth is going on? T'Chaka demanded. His gaze settled on the young man occupying his chair. Who are you, stranger? How did you even get here, in Wakanda, of all places? And in the royal palace, no less? The man just smirked at King T'Chaka's questioning. Didn't you hear the king, outsider? Okoye demanded, her voice sharp. Answer his questions, or we'll make you regret it. She delivered the ultimatum. But if you did that, then you'd be just like your precious king, wouldn't you? Responsible for the murder of a royal, the man stated. His pronouncement fell, and the Wakandan throne room was instantly hushed. It lasted hardly a heartbeat until Ramonda interrupted. What kind of nonsense are you spouting, stranger? She asked the man. It's not nonsense, auntie, the man replied. I'm not your aunt, Ramonda said. Oh, but you are, the man said. He rose to his feet. For you see, he said, my father was your king's brother, the one he killed. Enough with your lies, outsider, T'Challa said, his voice firm. You arrive in our country, in our space, and then you talk. But you offer nothing to support what you say. Need proof, cousin? Just look at your father's face, the man snarled. Very well, T'Challa said. I figured I'd give the man what he wanted before I had to make a final decision. He was taken aback, utterly stunned, by the sight of his father's face. His face was as pale as a ghost, and he wore an expression that was both guilty and serious. Father, what's the matter? Shuri inquired. He knew his reckoning was at hand, the price for his cowardice. The things he'd taken, not just from my father, but from me as well, the guy shouted. Oh, and as for my identity, the world knows me as Eric Stevens. But my true name, the name given to me at birth, is Njadaka, son of Njobu. And I am here to take what is mine by right, he declared. The proclamation echoed, a sound meant for every ear in the grand hall. That, in turn, set the whole room to murmuring. T'Chaka, however, remained utterly still. So did Zuri, one of his oldest advisors and closest friends. Their previous misdeeds, long buried, have finally come back to haunt them, and in a spectacular fashion. Seeing this, Eric couldn't suppress a smug grin. Trask Industries headquarters. Bolivar Trask sealed the bottle of his prized scotch after pouring a generous measure into the two glasses resting on his desk. He returned the item to his desk drawer, the spot where it always resided. Once he'd finished, Trask claimed one of the cups for himself. He then slid the other across the table to the man facing him. Senator Robert Kelly. Senator Kelly, a smile playing on his lips, lifted the glass and took a sip. Ah, this is delicious. Thank you, Dr. Trask, he said. You're welcome, Trask said. But truly, Senator Kelly, the thanks are all mine, he continued. Considering everything you're doing to help me launch the Sentinel program. For years, Bolivar Trask had been pushing the government to back a project he was convinced would revolutionize everything. Sentinels. A collective of robots designed for remarkable adaptability. Their mission: to shield everyday people from the threat of aggressive mutants. Or EVOs, as the world was beginning to refer to them. Still, that didn't alter the fundamental reason Trask had created the Sentinels in the first place. Despite his persistent efforts, the administration consistently rejected his appeals. That changed almost a year ago, when Kelly reached out to Trask directly. He'd crossed paths with the man before, though their exchanges had always been surface level. That had shifted, though, over the past year. The nature of their connection also played a role. The two men had become rather familiar with each other. Some could even consider them pals. Their meetings became a regular occurrence, a time when they would hash over a variety of subjects. The most important goal was to get the Sentinel program funded by the government. Kelly, leveraging his connections and power, set things in motion. Trask, for his part, concentrated on the scientific aspects of their collaboration, the work he excelled at. The two men were off and running. Please, Dr. Trask, I think we're past the formalities. Robert will do, Kelly said. Very well, Robert. But if that's the case, please, call me Bolivar, Trask said. Sure thing, Kelly replied. He lifted his glass, a silent toast aimed squarely at Trask. Here's to what lies ahead. Indeed, future success, Trask responded. The two men raised their glasses, a gentle clink marking the moment, before they both took a sip. Unbeknownst to them, their persistent choices were steering them toward an inevitable confrontation with mortality. A smile danced on Celine's lips, hardly containing her bubbling anticipation. The moment to confront Naruto von Regnum was drawing near. The wait was over. She was about to meet the man who had piqued her interest. Now that he was ready, actually, it's more than sufficient. Celine was poised, ready to snatch him and make a meal of him. She licked her lips, a slow, deliberate movement, and then rubbed her legs together. Thinking back to the moment she had Naruto right where she wanted him. Oh Naruto, I hope you're ready for me, Celine said. Because I'm more than ready for you, she breathed, her voice a sultry whisper. Celine's face twisted into a cruel, wicked grin. Unknown location. Inside one of their clandestine bases, Alexander Pierce convened with the upper echelon of Hydra. Gideon Malik, a fellow member of the World Security Council. Daniel Whitehall, General Hale of the Air Force. Then, at last, came the youngest of their little circle, Ophelia Sarkeesian. Madam Hydra is the name. All right, Pierce, what's the story behind this sudden gathering? Hale inquired. Pierce was the one who summoned them all. Indeed, I concur with General Hale. Either you clarify the purpose of this gathering, or I shall depart, Whitehall stated. All right, I was just getting to it, Pierce said. Friends, colleagues, I've gathered you all here today to address a shared concern, one that poses a direct threat to Hydra. The source? Naruto von Regnum and his nation, Latveria. The news was met with a chorus of frowns and furious looks from everyone present. Similar to Pierce, they saw Naruto and Latveria as a threat. Especially over the last 18 months, considering the impact he was having. That man, the madam said. No matter how many people I send after him, they never come back. His security is top-notch. He could even know we're trying. Even if he is, it matters not, Whitehall said. Who would take the word of a king from a little European country over the rest of us? A king, married to Susan Storm, one of the world's leading superheroes and a brilliant scientist, Gideon said. And again, considering everything he's involved in, if he chose to reveal us to the world, if he knows we're here, his world wouldn't just be ignored. That's precisely the situation I wanted to address with you all today, Pierce stated. All right, let's dive in. For the glory of Hydra. For the glory of Hydra, the others intoned, their voices a single, unified sound. The conversation then turned to a more civilized topic: how to eliminate Naruto. The fools, utterly oblivious to the pointlessness of their efforts. Latveria, Doomstat, Castle Doom. April 5, 2010. Future Emperor of Earth. Naruto's POV. My holographic screen flickered to life, casting a glow in the dim confines of my own office within Castle Doom. I go over the morning reports my team sends my way. I now do it every other day, rather than every other week. Given the quick changes in events and the preparations I've started, I need to keep alert. To prevent everything from going sideways, which would inevitably lead to a massive mess. Because, and I realize I've repeated this ad nauseum, but it's the simple fact of the matter. This is a Marvel universe. If you don't address problems promptly, Murphy's Law tends to kick in. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. From the reports I've seen, things appear to be running smoothly right now. Jessica's initial outreach involved contacting as many of the defenders as she could manage, and she presented her recruitment proposal. The next move is to simply wait and observe. Based on all I've learned about the defender candidates, I'm fairly certain both Luke and the other Jessica will take the offers they've been given. Jessica Jones, specifically. My troops, having dealt with the Purple Man, finally put an end to that malignant, human-shaped menace. Fortunately, he was the comic book version of himself, a far cry from David Tennant's portrayal. I wasn't exactly hoping for him to get the death penalty. Make no mistake, though, I'd have seen to it that the Purple Man met his end, regardless of who played him. I'm just relieved he didn't. Let's continue. My feelings for Murdoch are mixed. I'm hoping he'll come along. Elektra was coming too. Given that they're still an item and seem to be thriving. That was definitely a surprise when I found out. I can't quite grasp the reasoning behind it. Perhaps it's connected to the fact that Elektra's mother is still alive in this particular universe? I don't know. I'm genuinely pleased for them. I'm also hoping they'll be part of the Defenders. Seeing how they don't do it, it'll just be like Jessica for a little. Considering that Danny Rand and Frank Castle, the other two Defenders I'm hoping for, aren't available right now. The other is still honing their skills in Kunlun. The latter draws from his Marvel Cinematic Universe experience, as well as that Punisher movie starring Thomas Jane as Frank Castle. In this dimension, the Drank Castle has hung up its military boots and is now an FBI agent. I won't even consider reaching out to him until his family is in danger and someone tries to kill them. I also say, attempt, because I refuse to let Castle's family perish. Frank didn't deserve to go through that. As a family man now, I better understand Castle's character. If somebody ever tried to take my family from me, I swear the planet would be reduced to ashes. Alright then. I'm just hoping I can get the Defenders together the right way. Especially considering that if they do, Jessica and Luke will probably end up together. If they do, I'd be thrilled. They were, after all, one of my favorite comic book pairings. That's the reason I'm subtly orchestrating everything. It just feels off to me to have one without the other. That's the hope. Secondly, Zod succeeded in locating Gambit and bringing him on board. Excellent. Mr. Sinister's hand just became a little weaker, and now we get to see if this universe's Gambit can actually become something resembling a hero, unlike the many previous iterations of him I'm familiar with. I understand the potential for treachery, but I'm prepared to accept that possibility. I'm going to take a chance on Gambit, though. If I even get a whiff that Red-Eyed is about to betray us, I'll take that bow staff of his and make sure it goes in one end and out the other. I'll mend him, and then repeat the process a few more times before I make any further decisions. Naruto doesn't forget a betrayal. Nobody. Thirdly, Magneto's work to liberate captured Evos and confront hostile factions worldwide is moving along rather well. Particularly because Magneto is adhering to my directives and not overstepping. At least, there are witnesses willing to speak. Specifically, a lot of the folks he's saving are escaping from the grips of organizations such as the Friends of Humanity and the Purifiers. I was hoping this person wouldn't be real, but then Marvel Murphy Law had to show up and ruin everything. It appears the Purifiers in this planet were created in much the same manner as those in the Fox television series, The Gifted. Another wave of vitriol, another group of bullies, joining the already overflowing ranks of those who despise Evo. And the inaction of governments worldwide about these groups, it just fuels my frustration. That's why I'm so eager for the day when the whole planet is mine. Since when did I plan on having a friendly talk with groups like the Purifiers? I'll be getting rid of them all during our conversation, no question. That's bound to sway them, and it seems Magneto has crossed paths with Iceman. That's great. With him on board, I can now begin implementing my strategies to address the polar ice caps. I could have handled that sooner, but with Bobby, everything will be a lot simpler. As the adage goes, the key is to work smarter, not harder. Fourth, Eric has effectively integrated into Wakanda, and his origins have been revealed to the most powerful people in the African nation. Fine. That means Eric can finally start reshaping Wakanda, molding it into his own image. My vision aligns with his for the African nation. A space, a sanctuary, that will simply be, within the empire of me. That should be a simple task for Eric, given that I'm backing him. And let's not forget, Zemo's got his back on the ground. He was the author of the report I'm currently reading. Eric had been in clandestine contact with Zemo, passing along details on the situation unfolding in Wakanda. It seems poised on the brink of a full-blown civil war. Well, that's hardly a shocker. That's just what I envisioned when I dispatched Eric to handle things. With the facts of T'Chaka's past misdeeds against his own family being public knowledge, his reign is unlikely to last. Moreover, Eric's decision to involve Clow, a person T'Chaka had failed to capture for many years, strengthened his claim to the throne. T'Challa's got a tough road ahead. Even if he were to best Eric and ascend to the throne, I have already prepared for that eventuality. It probably won't happen, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sit back and do nothing, just in case. Because this way, I always win. Peter Parker, at long last, has acquired his spider abilities. Reading this news, I couldn't help but smile. For the time being, the original Spider-Man is the one we're seeing. Armed with this knowledge, I can finally start guiding him. I refuse to let this Peter Parker's existence mirror the countless iterations I've witnessed in comics, films, and television during my past. Though he was a remarkable hero, Peter's life outside of that was, well, quite miserable. Perpetually tardy, perpetually broke, and perpetually failing at love, that was Peter. And then there was the matter of his unrealized promise, which seemed to be a constant in his life. I'm convinced it's all because of what Uncle Ben says to Peter just before he passes away. Honestly, I doubt he understood the weight of his words, the way they bound and damned his nephew. Because of these factors, Peter's focus shifted more towards being Spider-Man than being Peter Parker. Finding a nice balance in both is a rare occurrence. That's why, when Doc Ock hijacked Peter's body in the comics and became the superior Spider-Man, a narrative I genuinely enjoyed, I must say, I had to concede he did a few things quite well. He managed to juggle the demands of everyday living with the responsibilities of being a superhero. That's precisely what I'm going to teach this Spider-Man. I'm also wondering who Peter will end up with. While our reality lacks a Michelle Jones or a Mary Jane Watson, I did a little digging and discovered a Felicia Hardy, also known as Black Cat, one of the two sexist, cat-themed characters in the entire comic book world. The other, of course, is Selina Kyle, often known as Catwoman, from the DC Comics universe. Gwen or Felicia? That's the question, isn't it? Who will Peter pick? Then, perhaps I could arrange for him to have both. A little something to ponder. Let's keep going. I sifted through more reports, and then I hit one that left me utterly blank. The moment I grasped the core of it, my face betrayed nothing. The report revealed how Bolivar Trask and Senator Robert Kelly had become closer over the previous year. They were collaborating to secure funding for the Sentinel program from the US government. Oh, I see, I said, thinking it over. Brainiac, it's time to put the kill plans for Dr. Trask and Senator Kelly into action, I said. Since not a single Sentinel will ever exist in this universe, no way we're dealing with any days of future past nonsense while I'm here. I won't let anyone even think about Master Mold, Nimrod, or Bastion. Not a chance. Forget about that. Looks like it's time for Trask and the Senator to sit down with Lady Death herself. Got it, my Emperor. Kelly and Dr. Trask are both already gone. Brainiac responded. I'm also getting things in place for us to acquire Trask Industries after the good doctor's passing. I guess that's what you want me to do next. You know me, I replied. So, I went back to checking out the reports until I wrapped them all up. So, once I was all set, I got ready to go have breakfast with my family. Let's chat about our upcoming trip to Monaco. Even with all the changes I've made, it seems like the events of Iron Man 2 are still pretty much on track. So, I'm heading to Monaco not just to have a little talk with Tony about saving his life, but also to handle Vanko and score some extra brownie points with the public. You know, ever since Susan and I tied the knot, and she became my one and only official wife in the eyes of everyone, we haven't had much time to just kick back and enjoy ourselves. So, on this trip, we're definitely going to do that. Guess who's arriving in Monaco? It's Mr. and Mrs. von Regnum. Hope you're all set. As I walked into the dining hall of the castle where my family and I often gathered, I noticed everyone already sitting at the table, having a nice breakfast. So, we've got Christoph, Boris, the twins, Susan, Zora, and then there's Lucia. If Jessica were here, she'd be joining us too. I believe that spending quality time with family is super important. The Doombots were standing by the dining hall doors, and as I walked in, I closed them behind me. I made my way over to Susan and gave her a quick kiss. I went ahead and did the same for Lucia and Zora, before I settled into my spot at the head of the table. I'm the head of this family. Good morning, I told them. I got some replies back after that, except for the twins, of course. Even with all their incredible skills, they're still just a year old. We actually just had a little celebration for their first birthday just a couple of days ago. Franklin and Valeria were both born on April 1st, saint that could be linked to their playful personalities. Well, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. Once I wrapped up saying hi to my family, I grabbed some breakfast. I mean, even though I'm not hungry, since I have the ability to be self-sustaining. Honestly, I don't even need to breathe to stay alive. After doing both of those things, along with a bunch of other similar stuff in one lifetime, it's not exactly a walk in the park to just stop doing them. Also, I enjoy breathing and eating. They bring me comfort and joy, right? I mean, what's life without enjoying the little things? After I had a little something to eat, I jumped into a chat with everyone about the trip to Monaco that Susan and I have coming up. Who's there? Just then, we heard a knock on the dining hall doors that interrupted us. When this happened, I focused on it. Come in, I said, raising my voice. As I opened the doors, two people walked into the dining hall. She was a tall woman, standing at 6 feet 4 inches, with beautiful caramel-colored skin, long black hair, and striking dark eyes. So, the other guy is this tall 6 feet 9 inches dude with golden blonde hair and deep blue eyes. They go by the names Halo and Savage. Check out the latest Primarchs I've come up with over the last couple of years. Since the other Primarchs are all tied up with their own things, and my plans are finally coming together, I thought it would be a good idea to bring in some extra help. So, I ended up making these two. Oh, and about their names, I chose Halo's because she has the same powers as Halo from DC Comics. So, she can create halos or auras in different colors around her body, and each one gives her a special ability linked to that particular halo or aura. I named Savage that because none of the other names I thought of suited him, and I couldn't go with Beast since Dr. McCoy already has that one. Basically, what I'm saying is that Savage has the same powers as Animal Man from DC Comics. So, he can tap into the skills of animals, even the ones that are no longer around, just by thinking about them. He's definitely one of the most dangerous people on the planet. He could probably tap into the entire galaxy if he gets access to the morphogenic field and mimic the abilities of alien creatures, just like Savage Man did in the DC Comics. Unfortunately, we haven't had the chance to test Savage and see if he has this aspect of his powers yet. My friends and I just haven't had any luck finding any alien animals. Looks like we'll have to hold off until we dive into those space opera adventures to find out if Savage is as savage as I suspect he is. Even though his name is Savage, he's just a gentle giant when things aren't too serious. He's kind of like Android 16 from the Dragon Ball series in that way. As soon as they stepped into the room, both Savage and Halo dropped to one knee and bowed their heads to me. "King Naruto," they said together. "You both can get up now," I told them. So they got back on their feet. "What's up? Why did you interrupt our family time?" I went ahead and asked them. "Everyone knows that unless it's super important, you shouldn't interrupt my family time." "I've got some important news for you, my king," Halo said. "All right. Go ahead and tell me," I replied. "My king, I think this is something you might want to hear in private," Savage mentioned. "All right then, Savage," I said. "All right. Go ahead and tell me," I said to him. "Sure thing, sir," Savage responded. He strolled over to me and started whispering what he needed to say right into my ear. After he wrapped things up, he took a step back. "I see," I replied. "Absolutely. That's some important news. Great job on pointing that out to me," I said. "Of course, my king," Savage replied. "By the way, we've already started getting everything ready." He said, "Naruto, what's Savage on about? What's up?" Susan was asking me. "Oh, it's no big deal, my dear. I've got to run and handle a few things. I can't wait for that." "I'm sorry about that," I said. "It's all good, Naruto. Just go out there and be the king. We get it," Boris mentioned to me. "Yes, my love, we do," Zora replied. "That we do," Lucia added. "Go, Dad. We're going to be just fine," Kristoff said. "You're going to fill me in on all of this when you get back." Susan mentioned it to me. The twins started to gurgle. "Sure thing. I get where everyone is coming from, thanks a lot." I mentioned it to them. I got up from my seat and headed out of the dining hall, with Halo and Savage following right behind me. I can barely hold back my excitement. I was finally going to meet Mystique in person. Mystique walked down the hall, silently cursing herself. A collar that suppresses her powers is wrapped around her neck. I'm surrounded by Doombots and a couple of Spartans, all around me. "So, the blue-skinned shapeshifter has been caught, huh? So, you're thinking about sneaking into Latveria, huh? Why is that?" "Just checking in on her leader, Eric. Someone showed up in Latveria 2 years back and started behaving oddly. He switched up his costume, began taking orders from a different person, and even moved to Latveria." Mystique was struggling to understand all the changes that had happened with Eric. She only knew it was something about Latveria and its king. Irene wanted to bring their daughter, Rogue, to meet her longtime lover. I've been given the green light to travel to Latveria. But Mystique interrupted them before she and Rogue could start their journey. That was 2 years back. Irene hadn't missed a day since then without trying to persuade Mystique that it would be a great idea for their family to take a trip to Latveria. It's like seeing how someone else has been shaped by the changes in this country. With so many people around her suddenly changing because of Latveria, Mystique thought it would be a good idea to check the place out. And perhaps discover the answers to a few of her questions. As soon as she stepped into the country, she got caught. So, here she is, heading to meet the king. As she reached the end of the hall, where a pair of double doors stood, Mystique spotted 2 more Doombots stationed outside. She faced forward, not even flinching. As she approached, the 2 Doombots at the door swung them open, and once they did, Mystique was guided inside. She found herself in the throne room of Latveria. Mystique glanced around, soaking in every detail of the room. But especially the guy sitting on the throne right in the center, decked out in his armor. Naruto from Regnum. He had his fingers interlaced, with his elbows comfortably resting on the arms of his throne. She was surrounded by 2 people she didn't know, along with Eric. Someone gave her a quick look, but that was about it. After Mystique scanned the whole room, she just settled in, waiting for her fate to unfold. But after a minute, not a soul budged an inch. Then a minute went by, and then another, and another one after that. Time kept ticking away, and no one seemed to take action against her. Mystique is left confused. Just as she was starting to think more about the situation, the throne room doors swung open again. Just a moment later, a very familiar voice called out her name. Raven. One that was owned by her brother, Charles Xavier. And what about Eric? Xavier exclaimed. He couldn't resist looking over at Naruto. I get what you're thinking about asking Charles, and I just wanted to say that I thought it was about time for you to have a little reunion. Naruto responded. Now that Charles is here, we can kick things off. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.